Hi all, I have another fascinating game to show you of Leela Chess. This is Leela ID 32395 against Stockfish 10, time control 15 minutes with a 2-second increment, posted by Matt Blakely to the Leela Chess forums. More games commenting. Hardware, by the way, 4 CPUs versus a 1070 Ti graphics card. So the opening, knight f3, knight f6, we have b3, d5. I believe this is the start position. So Leela plays bishop b2, bishop g4, we have e3, e6, h3, Stockfish takes on f3, queen takes f3, bishop e7. More usual in this position theoretically is knight bd7. This position has been seen a bit before and it's thought to be okay for both sides. So bishop e7, we have now g4, very aggressive. Black castles, and now we have knight c3. White prepares the castle queen side, so a very exciting setup now. Opposite side casting games, often a great deal of fun. We have c5, h4, knight c6. So who's going to win this race? On d4 immediately the knight can go to e2. This seems to be okay. This position seems to be okay. So knight c6, we have g5, knight e8, white castles queenside, knight d6, now we have queen g4, rook c8, rook g1, now d4, knight e4, and here Stockfish plays knight f5. You might wonder, is taking on e4 any good? It seems this might help white slightly. If the queen takes, it's ready for this battery with bishop d3. So for example, say g6, h5. This position is quite promising for white. White can install the dreaded form pawn and have a nice advantage. For example, this is just a fictional variation where white has that bishop pair, form pawn, and black's king is in the center here. The rooks are disconnected. White's better there. So knight f5 was played. We have king b1. And now c4. This looks like a very aggressive attempt to do something with white's king on the queen side. In this position, with this battery, it does actually mean something functionally. If, for example, queen a5, then knight f6 check is strong. Very strong. For example, takes here, f takes e7, e takes, and bishop takes d4. And this is just great for white. White's got a big advantage there. Let's have a look at this variation again. So instead of taking, let's say king h8, then knight takes h7 is strong here. And after check, g6 threatening, checkmate, this opens up that g file and hits e6. It seems as though black is in trouble in other ways in this position, not just king safety, but this pin piece nearly to the queen and other stuff, and that pin to the rook. White seems to end up exploiting the pins here. So for example, this position, bang, rook takes d6 as an example. So there's quite a bit of stuff going on there in these lines. So here is where c4 was made. It's quite a committal looking move. That's why I mentioned queen a5. But it seems, yeah, knight f6 check is stronger than queen h5. Check out the pinned comment for the analysis of these variations as well. Okay, so c4 was played. We have e takes d4. C takes. At least black is trying to use that c file to get to white's king. It's a race scenario. King h8. This does look rather ominous that the bishop is on that diagonal. If only this bishop could really be clear on that diagonal. On queen a5, in fact, white could clear the diagonal with d5. So, for example, like this, bishop c3 first. There's a nice little nuance actually here. And then, for example, knight f6 check. Queen takes f5. Yeah, I mean, what is black doing here? On queen takes d5, there's still knight f6 check. That's really strong. So this is actually quite lethal. These ideas are quite lethal here. So king h8, we have h5, and black actually does take that d pawn, clearing the way for the bishop. This looks completely wrong intuitively to take on d4. But let's have a look at queen a5 here, d5 here, e takes, we just take the knight, and on queen takes, actually here, bishop c4 is strong. For example, queen a5, h6, and white now can crash through with g6 in this position. For example, like this, black's in meltdown here. This scenario, black's shedding material, has king safety issues, white's a load better, and the knight's been attacked there. It's no attack for black. So we have knight f takes d4. So how does white progress here? Doesn't this actually mean the bishop is not going to be that influential? A key move here, very nice move, which does eventually promise to liberate the bishop on this attacking diagonal. What would you play here if I give you 5 seconds to pause the video? Okay, seems a little bit maybe counterintuitive to put a pawn on a dark square in front of the bishop. But yes, and now another one, so there's 2 pawns in front of the bishop, but it doesn't matter, they can be removed pretty shortly. After queen a5, that's the move played. If e5 here, let's have a quick look at e5. There's d5 with the promise of d6. This is very, very strong. Even f5 doesn't help black. d7, the pawn's crashing through. After rook d6, black's overloaded with the d pawn and g7 simultaneously. For example, like this, white can cash out, queening that pawn with a big advantage. So e5 is out of the question because of d5. So queen a5 was played, and now h6, installing the form pawn, and it just needs the ball to be passed to that goal hanging pawn now after g6. We have the dreaded form pawn. If king g8, this doesn't help black at all really, just to show there's going to be other problems here with knight f6 for h7 or winning the queen. So g6, we have d5. Now the bishop's going to be liberated again, even though these pawns temporarily get in the way, they're released now. E takes d5 is played, rook takes d5, very nice tactical shot. So this to have a discovered check. And black actually doesn't have much better than to take on d5 here. This c4 is really strong. In this position, if the queen, say, goes to b6, then there's rook b5, forking queen and knight. This would be very nice for white. Where can actually the queen go here? If the queen goes to a4, there's bishop b5, and then bishop takes c6 hits the queen. That wins material as well. If the queen scurries back to c7, c4 check, and the key point here, for example, is queen f3, threatening knight f6 check to try and mate on h8. So for example, say the knight moves, which is also hit, then knight f6 check, and here knight e8 check is winning the queen. After that discovered check, winning the queen. But if bishop takes f6, then queen takes f6 is going to be mating on h8. There's very little to prevent this happening here with that form pawn especially. Black's in lockdown here, would have to give up the queen. This is just hopeless. So yeah, in a nutshell, yeah, the queen, it's best to just take on d5 here. So we have actually taking c4 check, queen gets in the way, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop h3. White is doing really well actually here, because actually one important thing is the d5 square. It's very useful for white. White pivots around the d5 square pretty shortly now with bishop d5. We have knight takes g5. On knight cd4, f4 looks good. For example, like this, taking, using the d5 square. This is just better for white. So we have knight takes g5, knight takes a4, and yes, white does have a material advantage. This should be just pretty straightforward, even with Stockfish trying to defend this. It's pretty hopeless here, this position. Let's go to the final position. So black starting to lose some material. Queen d6 here, black's getting overloaded. The game ended here. As an example continuation, queen takes d5 check, check, c5. This pass pawn is winning. So if taking, there's queen d5 check, let's put that on the board here in this fictional variation. Otherwise, say bishop takes h6, check, c6, the pass pawn is going to be winning here, crashing through. Okay, so yeah, another really interesting game on the Leela Chess forums, showing that these later IDs on the 13 network are really quite aggressive, very aggressive and dynamic, especially in opposite side castling scenarios like this game. If you enjoyed this game video, then please click on the top left box, which should appear shortly, to become a member at chessworld.net. Play against other YouTubers. You can also check the YouTube analysis of these games from the improved menu, learn from the Masters YouTube order button. So comments, questions, donations, see the description. Like, share, subscribe with the notification bell, really appreciated. And check out the new Teespring store in the description as well. Okay, thanks very much.